Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Bird's Eye View Comic Art. I'm Corey Bird, comic book artist, freelance, and so forth. Um, Before I was going to do this video in front of the camera and everything like that, but I don't do well in front of the camera. So I decided to just go ahead and draw and talk as I go along and just introduce everybody to the channel. So please like and subscribe and check out all the art I have on here, as well as quick drawings of tooth and nail character designs and fan art and everything. So please check out everything, tell your friends, subscribe to the channel, and check out my Facebook page, Tooth and Nail Comic, and you can email me if you need to contact me at birdseyeviewcomics@gmail.com. Also, my Instagram at birdseyeviewofficial. So here we go. We are working on page 1 of issue 3. Now, some of you may not have even heard of Tooth and Nail. Tooth and Nail is a comic book series that I'm currently working on. Well, actually, the first 2 issues are out already, some in stores around the Illinois area. And you can also, order through me on through my email or through Facebook and Messenger and everything. So you can contact me, give me the information, and I will definitely send it over to you. And we'll talk about payment options and stuff. So far, issue 1 and 2 are available. Go to the website, take a look at the artwork, take a look at the covers. I have some sample pages on there as well, if you want to get an idea of what's going on. And those who are in Illinois, issue 1 and 2 are available at Graham Cracker Comics, and in the suburbs at Wheaton, at Graham Cracker Comics, and Geek Inc. Comics. I haven't reached every store yet, but I'm working on it, and I'm going to be going to C2E2 this year. Not to be in the Artist Alley as of yet, but I'll be walking around with my Bird's Eye View comic shirt on, and just meeting people and, doing some networking and everything. So please leave a comment about the work, what you think, any pointers, anything like that you want to contribute. So here we go. I'm going to start on the inking here on page 1 of issue 3. And here I'm using a fountain pen to get some of the thinner lines and thicker lines around our character here. This character here is Geen. He's the master of our main characters. And this page is a flashback page. And you'll see more if you pick up the book. I'm not going to give it too much away. I would like people to check out the book and everything like that. So Tooth and Nail is an action adventure starring anamorphic cats, rats, wolves, and other creatures. And I came up with this idea because my mother-in-law had 4 cats when I first met my wife. And each cat had a distinct personality. And I wanted to emulate that in, cartoon form. First, it was going to be a cartoon strip. And then I decided to turn it into a comic book series. So the 4 cats, that's not on this page. You'll see, if you check out the website and everything like that, you'll see the main cats on there, or go to the Tooth and Nail page on my Facebook, and you will see the 4 cats, and then you'll see the covers and everything like that. The 4 cats are Jade, Sapphire, Destiny, and Onyx. And I'm heavily inspired by like manga, anime, of course, American comics, but mostly like American comics from when I was, growing up and everything like that. I read a lot of X-Men, Jim Lee X-Men, and Battle Chasers by Joe Mad Durera. So a lot of strong influences from that. And I'm also a big gamer. And some of my biggest influence gaming wise is Metal Gear Solid and Tenchu. Games like that. And so some of that will be reflected in, Tooth and Nail. Also a big fan of Lord of the Rings, all the geeky stuff. I'm a Star Wars fan, but this definitely is not a sci-fi type story. More action adventure, more fantasy driven type of story. So please leave comments below about what you see here or anything else you see on the Bird's Eye View page. And give me some feedback. Feedback would be great. I always say that, we learn more from our criticisms than our compliments. And I think that's across the board for all types of art. That's how we improve. We see what we are not doing correctly, and we might not agree. There's a lot of things we get criticism about, and we might not agree about what they're doing, or maybe some people might not understand what the artist is trying to convey. So we just got to be respectful and give constructive criticism without hurting people's feelings and stuff like that. And like I said, I tried to do a video with me on the camera, but I just couldn't do it right. And I'm not much of an editor or a putting videos on YouTube. It's just the first time I'm really doing things on YouTube. Most of the stuff you'll see is just me drawing rather than me talking, because I had the tendency to trip over my words and stuff like that. Not young like I used to be. So it's hard to get my thoughts out the way I want to, especially on camera. But please go to my Tooth and Nail page on YouTube. I mean, not on YouTube, on, see, I can't get my thoughts together right. On Facebook. Please place comments, become part of the page. And the more people reach out, the more I can do some great stuff, the more I can learn. One of the things you got to worry about when you're doing inking, especially with a fountain pen, is try not to put your hand on the ink before it's dry, because it'll get right on your hand. You might be able to see it there. And then it'll smear on your page. So you definitely don't want that to happen. And sometimes I forget about that. when dealing with smaller pens, such as, you know, a Sharpie pen or whatever, you really don't have to worry about that. And then when you're doing inks like this, you want to be aware of the line weight. So line weight is where things are, you know, you use the pen for thick lines and thin lines and stuff like that. So that way you can give it more depth and realism, at least from my experience. So areas like here underneath Gein's arm, might want to make it a little bit thicker because there's heavy shadow there. It really makes it pop. And you definitely want to use all type of different pens, the different weights, to really get that look, you know. And if you don't, I mean, sometimes you can just kind of press down a little lighter if you are using one pen. And I learned a lot about line weight from looking at videos online and stuff like that. When I was younger, I used to just use one pen, and it didn't really have a lot. I didn't really know a lot about line weight at the time. So everything had like this same look to it, you know, with my inks. Now, this is situations taking place at night. So there's definitely going to be a lot of black areas, but you also got to not be too dark where you miss all the action. And here I'm just using a regular old Sharpie. And when drawing on the comic book board, you know, these outside lines here, you can just go ahead and, you know, if you need to color offset of it, you know, the border here is going to only be the only thing you're going to be really working with. That'll be the print area. So if you need to go off those lines, it'll just get cut off anyway. And then when I scan it in, I'll just scan, you know, this portion of it. So if you need to, if you mess up or you go out of the blue line, don't worry about it, because all the artwork is going to be within that thick line there. Okay, we got some heavy blacks there. Now here, I'll probably use a little bit more of a thicker, not as thick, because I want to keep that effect of the speed lines going. And this one's kind of drying out, but that actually kind of works in my favor here, because this section is going to be like a speed line effect in black. You see how it looks like it's still using speed lines even though it's black. And by not being completely trying to think of the word, but just clean, it works out for my effect. So because it's drying out, I can get that effect that is like a blur. So that works out to my advantage. Now, if you're trying to do just a solid black situation, it's not as effective. That's why I would switch to another marker if that was the case. So here we'll put a little bit more detail. And you don't have to worry about the pencils too much, because you're probably going to erase it after everything dries. Do a little cross hatching here, give a little texture. Almost forgot about the sword, or the blade, the dagger, short sword. It's all different things, but you get what I mean. I had to actually come in and draw this blade in after I had done page 2, because I had completely forgot to put the blade in there, so I had to fit it in there. So you wouldn't even know it, that I completely forgot to put it. But I added it later on. So I use another pen to give a little bit texture to Gein's hair here. Outline it a little bit better. And sometimes you can forget about, you know, the some of the pencil areas. You might forget to make sure you cover everything. And sometimes you can use the sketchy areas for texture. So I can use some of these sketchy areas of Gein's garb here. And his hands, or paws. To add some texture. Flying leaves here. So now we're going to do the tree areas. I'm using like a brush pen for this to give it, make it a little loose, you know, on the outline of it. So it's a brush pen. Keep it loose a little bit. So it actually looks like leaves. You don't want anything too thick. I want it to look a little bit more sketchy. Then I'll go in. This is the same one I had that was the ink was running out. Well, not the same one, but the same kind of pen. This one has a little bit more ink in it. It is fading out. It's still a little bit. But it still works out to my advantage because I don't want really thick lines here. So I went outside the blue just to make sure that I get everything there. And then I'll do a bit of an outline. Make sure he stands out. You still don't want to lose the line weight, of course. But I keep that open there because that's showing the speed lines going under on top of his on top of his arm. So I'll add a gray to this after the ink dries, so it doesn't blend in. And then I got to erase the pencil so that way I can get that to look well. So that's the bottom panel of that page. I like to start from, depending on the composition, I like to start at the bottom and then make my way up when I do the inks. So this area here is going to be a lot thicker and black because of the shadows. You don't really see who it is that's running until the bottom panel. So it's almost like darker, and then the speed lines here. I'll probably add that in through the computer, through my app on my computer, on my iPad. Because drawing speed lines is not the most easiest thing in the world to draw. And this whole thing could be, my comic within the inside, the interior is black and white because I can't color. Well, coloring costs more money, and I just don't have the time to color everything. And I'm not a big colorist. Let's give it a little rocks kicking up. Not big on being a colorist. I do the covers and other art and stuff like that. But to do a whole book, that would take a lot of time for me. And I haven't gotten to digitally coloring things. Probably could cut a lot of time. But I like doing stuff traditional. I'm a big traditional artist. I'll do the digital stuff with lettering and stuff like that, but I know that's like blasphemy to some people. Some people are like, oh, good, keep it the traditional way. And a lot of people question me like, why don't you do it digitally? Why don't you do it digitally? And I was like, well, I'm still learning a little bit of digital stuff, but I'm so comfortable We're just doing it the traditional way. I'm a traditional type artist. Always have been. And not that, digital stuff is bad. I love the digital stuff. Some people do some amazing work digitally. And I don't have that talent yet. I mean, I'm sure if I practiced, I could get it. But right now, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the coloring digital situation. Traditional is just the way to go for me. And it'll probably look a lot cleaner and better if I did it that way, but I don't know. I'm kind of stuck in my ways when it comes to that. I've always drawn traditionally and just don't really want to break from that yet. So the trees and all these lines are thinner here because of the speed that Geen is going here. It's just showing his fast movement. And so you show that in the environment too. It's almost like the trees and everything here is running with you, running with him. They're like swaying with him. Even though they're probably not even moving. It's just the way he's moving makes it look like they're going. You know how sometimes you could be running or on a train or something like that, and if you imagine it, you would think that the environment is moving rather than the train or yourself. And that's the kind of effect I'm trying to convey here. And this panel kind of like bleeds into the bottom panel. Even though this is going to be separated, it just kind of bled into it. And that's fine. I like it like that. So right here will be speed lines coming out that way, but I think I'm going to just add that in digitally. It's a lot easier to do it that way. Make it a little bit darker down here. So that is another panel. And so, also with the panels, I go in digitally and I add those panels in because you can do different effects in the program that I use with the panels. Just make him stand out a little bit more right here. Keep that there. So that's the second panel, another panel. I wouldn't say second panel. The second panel would be right here. So right here we got a little environmental stuff going on and the effect of the black crimson. Black crimson is here. You are seeping through the door. And if you check out birdseyeView.com, the website, and you want to read the comic and everything like that, you'll learn what black crimson is. Just put it this way, it isn't good. So that's the black crimson coming through the door. It's funny how you can make squiggly lines and stuff like that form into something. And that's pretty much like most illustrations. Is like all you're doing is drawing a series of lines and circles and shapes to form things. And that's the beauty of art, taking something that is nothing and making it something. Use my transparent ruler there to make sure I get that all in line. Draw some textures on that door, sliding door that's here. Cross hatch and give it a little texture. All right, here's a little bucket that's next to the door. And the panel break would probably be here. And then you have the other panel break there. So it might look a little confusing here. But when I put the panels in the computer on my iPad, it'll make more sense. But that's the beauty of like just raw drawing. You take the little things that seem insignificant, and make something out of it. So all these little lines are just texture on the ground, on the porch. Not using a ruler here. I probably should. And even I messed up a little bit there, but I use it to my advantage. And that's the thing is if you mess up something when inking, sometimes you can fix it, sometimes you can't with the penciling, with the pen inking that you're doing. But that's another great thing about technology. You can go in and you can erase it. Back in the day, we would use like whiteout to fix things. But now with computers, you can just go in and erase it on that way and fix it. Excuse the noise in the background. That's my heater coming on. So hopefully that won't distract from the video, because I'm sitting right next to it. That's where my downstairs office is. All right, so that panel is done. We're going to go to the middle panel now. Do the inking there. Seems a lot of work going on in this area, but it'll be easy. I think it will. And I'm trying to keep things a little bit thinner with this so you can stay in detail. When you start using like really thick lines, you kind of lose detail. I try not to use thick lines until I have to do like deep shadows. So right here I can use a deep shadow because the moon is over here, and so it'll be very dark on this area. And probably on this side of the house should be all black, to be honest. At least dark. And I can leave a little bit of white there to give texture. And over here will definitely be dark. This is nighttime, so a lot of areas won't be seen as clear. You won't see as much detail. But then when you start heading in this direction, you get a little bit more light. And that's where a lot of line weight come in. I'm using a thinner pen to get the details. I use a thicker pen and I'll lose. It won't be as detailed. Now I could even go thinner than this, but I don't think I need to. Maybe when I go in and do a little bit of like that, like those little marks right there. And you can go in and do that like pretty quickly. This is the door that Geen is going to end up going to right in this area. Here's the little bucket. It's right there. Fishing rods right there. And that's how you keep attention to detail So this area will be a little bit lighter because of the moon shining that way. So that's one of the things about being an inker. You have to be aware of your light sources. The penciler usually puts those type of light sources in. I'm the penciler and the inker, so that's my advantage. I know where the lights and shadows are going to be. I don't really have to darken it in like that with the pencil, but I just do it anyway because I like the way it looks in pencil before I start doing the inks. And plus I like to take pictures of the pencils before I actually start inking it, so you can see how the pencils look before I start laying down the inks. So we got a little walkway here. And by the way, this issue is partially written by my son, Anthony Bird. This over here is water. Put a little boat there because this is a fisherman's house. Gotta make sure the land and the water effects. Pretty cool to try to draw. This is a little pier that he wrote into the script. The first two issues are written by me. I did not do a script. I just drew it based on what I wanted it to be. But with this, there was a script that I did some edits for. But mostly all this visualization is definitely my son. He visualized all of this and I put it into illustration form. It's the first time we've done this together. So it's pretty great. It's really cool that we can work together. This is a little fire that he wrote into the script. It's still burning. Guess they was doing a little night fishing before the tragic event that will take place. He did a great job of setting up scenery and the aesthetic of what's going on in this situation. And it was great to visualize it. That's one of the things about being a comic book writer. You have to almost visualize it as a comic. Even though you might not be an artist, you still have to visualize it, and the artist has to visualize what the writer is trying to communicate. And I think he did a good job with that. He visualizes this area very well, and he communicated it pretty well. That way I could be able to go in and draw it. We have to be able to be as one entity when doing a comic book, because if he's going in one direction, I'm going in a direction, it'll become a mess. So what he wrote, he sent to me. I broke it down into more panels and pages and stuff, because he kind of just had panel, rather than page 1, panel 1, stuff like that. So, he's learning. I've done this for years. I've studied this for years. So I kind of know how it all works. Good, the heater went off, so you can probably hear me a lot better. I'll be listening to this recording before I post it, so hopefully the heater doesn't drown me out. So this is coming together quite well. Let me get my circle template to draw in the moon. I think I might, no, I'm not gonna make it that big. I could look at a little bit bigger than the way I sketched it out there. It might be too big. Let me do a pencil first to see how it looks. Use a lighter pencil. It's always good to go light rather than dark because, you know, the light is easier to erase. Oh, that's pretty good. So I'll keep that close because I'm gonna ink that over. So, and I'm gonna use a thin pen for this drawing. You don't want to make it too thick. It is the moon. It's not it is a solid object, but you know, the farther the solid object is, the less it gives out. Yeah. Not really liking the way that turned out. Maybe I'm going too thin. I could just draw the whole moon here and then just edit it out later. I'm going to use a different pen. The pen wasn't cutting it. Yes. Oh, and also don't do what I just did. I left this pen without a top on. You don't want your pens to dry out too fast. So make sure you put the top on your pen, kiddies. Artist 101. All right. So we got that area done. I could put a little detail in the moon here, like I did at the top. Not as much. But at least you know what it is. Instead of just a big circle. All right, let's do some more detail here. Ink this stuff in. This will probably be a little bit more black. I'll add that in just a moment. Let me do a little bit of the detail first. Squiggly lines equal trees and leaves. Fascinating. All right. So let's go in and let me fix that up a little bit. Let me go in and add the black here. Maybe I'll use my pen here that's sort of running out so you can still get some texture in there. Sometimes these pens that run out is actually very helpful. Until it's just running out too much, then you can't really use it. It becomes too dry, but sometimes dry pens can help with texture. So we still get the moon. The house is kind of covering up the moon over there, so this should be definitely a lot darker. But we don't want to make it too dark because then you miss what's there. And what's great about these pens, they almost have a paintbrush effect. So there you go. That is the house and the pier. And we're going to go to our final area here at the top. Let all that stuff dry up. And then we're going to go in and add some gray for the shadows. And clean up some stuff. And then we'll be done with this page. So let's start with the moon here. Let's just get that out the way. Find the right circle that I used. At this time I'll use that thicker pen. I think I'm gonna use an 8 because it's more of an establishing shot, so you kind of want to see the moon a little bit more clearer. I didn't do that bottom part. So there you go. Then I could use that same pen to kind of do that detail since it's a little closer. I learned how to draw moons from Todd McFarlane. I loved the way he would draw moon and Spawn, and how they had these like crater-ish looking details and stuff like that. So I've always copied that look for moons whenever I drew a moon in my books. I really love the way he would do that. So we can use the 8 still to do some of these little details here. This is definitely going to be lighter. And if this was green, if this was in color, this area would definitely be green because of the trees. You would be able to see it because the moon is like directly shining on it. Whereas the bottom parts would be either a darker green or or black since it's nighttime. I'll just outline that a little bit. But because this is in black and white, we got to really focus on the blacks and the whites. You know, where's the blacks going to be the strongest? Where's the whites going to be the strongest? So, of course, with a light source, you want your whites to stand out. And then where the light source doesn't fall, then you would make those areas black or gray. And my first 2 issues, I didn't use any gray. But a friend of mine showed me a video of an artist who used the grays for shadows and depth, to really put depth into what you draw when it comes to shadows and so forth. And I was like, yes. And I always wanted to do the gray, but I just wasn't sure how. Yeah, I know you can use it to get shadows, but I didn't want to just do it. I wanted to learn how to do it. You know, I wanted to make sure I was doing it correctly. And then I learned it, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And so my post I put on Facebook is that I'm going to be upgrading my art for the comic. This for now on, you know, from this point on, it will be a lot different. Not a lot different, but different than what it was before. And I think that just shows growth and what you're creating and what you're doing and stuff like that. Because each issue is different from the rest in each book, art-wise. Because it shows my growth, you know, from the first issue to this, to the second issue to this issue. It's all going to be a continuous growth. Some people might notice. I mean, I know when that second issue came out and I was showing somebody, or when it was about to come out, he was like, man, I really see the growth that you have from the first issue to now. And I was like, huh, really notices. So here I'm still using the pen that's drying out here to kind of keep that texture going. I'll probably add some deep blacks for the areas that's farther from the moon. Right now I'm just using this as a first layer in a way, so that things won't be too black. My wife always complains, like, don't make it too black, don't make it too black. I was like, well, it's nighttime. Well, don't use too much. I understand what she means. You know, I get it. Sometimes the people who are not artists, which my wife isn't, she's a writer, but she's not an artist. She doesn't draw. In other words, she's an artist in a different way. Sometimes they have the better perspective because they see things that are different than what we see as artists. So it's good to listen to all types of people, even people who don't draw, but they appreciate the craft of drawing. And sometimes they might not fully understand, but some things they see that we don't. So it's good to listen to all types of different people. This pen is about done. This helped me get some texture layout here. But like I said, I'm going to add some more blacks to that. This is probably the easiest panel on this page, because it's just the moon and it's not that much detail. This is the border of the panel here. It might look a little messed up, but that's going to be fixed later on. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's go in and let's do some blacks here. Maybe use a little bit of a thicker marker. So here is a Sharpie. Get more blacks on these corners where the moon is not falling. Sort of like what we did with the shack down here. We did some deep blacks, but then we try to keep as much of, especially with trees and stuff, because with trees and bushes and stuff like that, them, if the light hits it, they're not usually like solid black. You see a little bit in between the leaves and the foliage. Same thing with the ground. Ground is not usually just solid black, because there's so many different things going on with that. But like maybe like a human figure or an animal figure or something like that that's covered in darkness, those might be solid black depending on the light source. But trees, if they're being shown by, if there's the moon or the sun, there's always going to be like multiple shadows and multiple light going on, because you have so many elements showing and not showing. You have leaves, you have branches, you have all types of things that's going on. Let's make that a little black there. This Sharpie's running out too, but I got an extra one. Dotting there to make sure the texture is there. So I would say that panel is good. I want to use that. This shouldn't be solid white, to be honest. But let's say that was colored, or maybe down the road it'll get colored, And I could do some more detail in that. I probably should. Look at some examples for my guy Joe Mad. I love the way Joe Mad does his shadows. His shadows are amazing because they bring a lot of depth. So he has something, some of it he's just got a straight silhouette going on. So I could go in and do a little bit more detail here so it doesn't look that blank. Because honestly, if it was in total light, it wouldn't be blank like that. And this is partial light. So why am I not going to put any more detail in that? Unless we were just silhouetting the trees, but even then. Remember what I said about the in-between. Do you want to... I should draw that in there. right, so you know what it is. And that's the point. All right, we're gonna do the grays now. Let me erase some of the pencils. Now, honestly, you don't have to erase all the pencils. Sometimes the pencils add, you know, the sketchy part of the pencils actually add to it. What you mostly want to get rid of is the smudges. Sometimes smudges be useful, sometimes they just look sloppy. So you want to make sure you get that out the way. And it's good to wait for this to dry. That's why you kind of like want to move to another panel before you start erasing, because it'll smudge. It'll streak. And then here, I'm going to add the speed lines in my program. So we'll just leave it like that. Then here, I'm erasing some of the panel work, but that's fine. Like I said, I can edit all of that stuff. It's still a little smudgy. This eraser is not the greatest, because it's a white eraser. So let's see if I can get a cleaner eraser going here. Because that eraser was trying to kind of taking the ink and smudging it even more. That's better. And some of it does that, which I hate. But it like takes away a lot of the ink. But in that case, it kind of works because of the speed he's going. Here we lost a little detail, so let's go back in. And you can always go back in and just add stuff that got lost. Like here, this is too thin. Especially with this pen, you can lose a lot from when you erase. It's just the way the pen is. And anything you want to go back and add in, you can. Like if you lose stuff, like these leaves flying, get these details and stuff like that. And this should be dry enough. I didn't use anything that'll smear too much. All right, so our final part is the grays. Don't worry about losing your pounds now, because I can go in and add that later. And I can add some effects to it. So what you want to start with when doing grays is a light gray. So it's always good to go light first, then to go dark first. So this is super light. This is a Cool 2. But it's fine to go light first, because then you can always go dark. You don't always go darker. So you want to go underneath those areas where there's going to be shadow. Here I use the lines as shadow, but I can add the gray to it to maybe it pop even more. And then in the hair area over here, there might be a little bit of shadow. Perhaps the moon is that way, or it might be that way. I didn't really think about the light source on this part, but that's fine. You know, it's not like I can say the light source is that way, and I really didn't think about the direction in which he was running. He is running towards the place, but the way the camera is doesn't necessarily like say which way he's running or where he's running. But we know from telling the story, we know that he's running towards something. So we got the arm here that's casting a shadow probably around here and here. And then back here we're gonna have a lot of gray and shadow. Okay. Then this is a cool gray. This is a cool gray. Oh, this was a cool gray 2.0. This is a cool gray 2.2. So this is going to be slightly darker. Might not be able to tell the difference on camera because honestly, gray does not come up on camera very well. At least in my experience. So cast a little light over there on the side of his face. And then here on his hands. Fingers cast shadow too, since it's a solid object. Draw some definition in the muscle area there. Let's move up to this panel. We're just going to stick with the little bit of the darker gray. Since this area is pretty much mostly shadow anyway and speed lines. Then we have this area over here. It's pretty much a lighter gray, so I guess I can deal with this. And then I think I have a darker gray I can go in and start adding stuff to. So you want to get some good shadowing there. Light source is coming from here. So light's coming that way. So you want to keep that part light. Then here, this is mostly where all the gray will fall. And you get the fire right there, so. And then you can add a little gray to the sky. A little bit more depth. And then add some gray over here. The tree area. The sky. So I'm gonna get a darker gray. I believe I have one. Make sure. Might be the darkest gray I have. I had a darker gray. I just don't know where it is anymore. So I have to probably buy another one. This is Sharpie dark gray, so we can get the edges here. And sometimes when you're coloring or drawing or adding gray, make sure that it fits what you want before you actually start laying it on the final product, or you're going to have a major problem. You're going to have to really clean that up on your computer. So always have a scratch sheet of paper on the side. Put some more definition there. Darken it in hand. This one's running out too, but that actually works to my advantage. You can also blend the grays together. So that's what I'll do after I do some lining here. Darker shadows. Give it more depth. Get some of those edges with the darker gray so it could really look very... That's one of the things about being a 2D artist. Being a 2D artist is trying to make things look 3D. And the gray helps with that because it makes it pop out, come out a little bit more. It adds some depth. That's what I mean by adding depth. It makes it look a bit more pop. It pops out more. Here, I'll just use that. Keep that gray here. Put some darker grays over here. Do some outlines there. Do some blending. So the dark gray doesn't like overpower all the other gray. You see how it blends in, spreads it out a little bit more so that it doesn't just be bam, you know, dark gray. It's okay here. So there's definitely some dark grays going on, but still here I wanted to blend in a little bit more. So there you go. Just clean this up a little bit here. Here's the sky, but we still want it to not look so bleh. That's a word. And there we go. This is page 1 of issue 3 with my new art style that I'm, messing around with. Thank you for joining me. Please subscribe. And please go to birdseyeviewcomics.com. Check out the website. Email me at birdseyeviewcomics@gmail.com for anything that if you want to order some books and everything like that, I can definitely hook you up with that. And also go to Tooth and Nail Comic on Facebook to check out any updates and so forth. And please keep coming back and checking out what I'm doing here on Bird's Eye View Comics Art. See you later.